Friday, March 7, 2014, 6:51 a.m. I wake to a milky half-light that intrudes into my strange surroundings. I am momentarily confused, and then I remember where I am. I roll over on the couch, which sags and creaks, as it has done all night. My back aches. There is a banging of cupboards in the kitchen, and I realize that this is what must have wakened me. When I sit up, I see Zar getting out a bowl for his Weet-Bix. "Oh, hi, dude. Sleep okay?" "Like a rolling log," I answer. I've tossed and turned most of the night, failing to get to sleep until about 3 a.m. My eyes feel all gritty as I check my watch. Geez, I'm going to have to get cracking. I've got to get home and feed Bugsy. Boy, is he going to be mad. Do cats get angry like that? You better believe it, buddy. They sulk like crazy. Is Justine up yet? I jump off the couch, almost tripping on the tangled doona. I'm wearing one of Zar's t-shirts and a pair of his shorts, and they are both a little too small for me. "That's her in the shower." Now that Zar mentions it, I can hear the water running. "She looked a little seedy when she got up. I'm guessing by the wine that you guys had a big night. I can't remember much of it." I had a glass. Justine had the rest. Wow, she normally doesn't drink a lot. Anyway, what exactly happened to her at the basketball game yesterday? I haven't seen her that pissed off for a long time, not even after the gig at the Espy. I'm grabbing a bowl from the cupboard and filling it with a few Weet-Bix biscuits. The milk is already out on the bench, so I grab it and pour. Zar opens a drawer and hands me a spoon. "Thanks," I say. "It's just that Ian fellow got under her skin. Among other things, he wasn't very sympathetic about me passing out. They had a row, I guess you could say. I decide to keep the whole thing simple. Justine obviously doesn't want Zar to know the details of McRae's threats." "Nothing new there. He was so charming to start with. Makes out like he's going to be your best friend. But after a while, he starts nitpicking and sniping. You see how everything seems to bother him? Then he starts putting you down, and eventually starts calling you names. Just put up with it for about 3 months. Every time he went too far, she'd call it off, you know. But he'd come back with flowers and say he was sorry. He kept giving us stuff as well. Big gifts, money. Then one day, just finds out he's back with his missus. That was the final straw. I don't think he understands that it's really and truly over." "I see." I can hear the shower turning off in the bathroom. "How come you're on the couch?" Zar points and raises his eyebrows. "Was I supposed to be somewhere else?" I'm smiling. "Hey, none of my business." I sit on the stool at the breakfast nook next to him. "How's my face this morning?" I ask. Zar takes a look, then turns my chin gently with his thumb and forefinger. "You're okay. Looks like somebody had a go at you. But the swelling's gone down heaps." Thanks, I think." I'll have to find a mirror to see for myself. At that moment, Justine emerges from the bathroom, wrapped in a thick white towel. A billowing cloud of steam follows her and spills out into the hall, like dry ice at a nightclub. She switches off the bright light and the extractor fan, then steps into the kitchen, flicking her wet hair to one side and combing it with her fingers. "Out the door in 15? I have to get you home, Dano. You can't go to work looking like that." She's smiling, but I can see the bags under her eyes. Then she steps forward, gives both Zar and me a kiss on the forehead. She radiates warmth from the shower. I smell shampoo and soap. As she disappears into her bedroom, Zar turns to me and says, "I still don't get why you were on the couch." 9:05 a.m. I finally reach my office, put away my jacket and briefcase, flop down on my chair, and breathe a sigh of relief. Better late than never. Justine had got me home by about 7:55 a.m. I smile as I remember how, as I was opening the car door, she said, "Hey, aren't you forgetting something?" Then she pulled me to her and gave me another kiss on the lips. "I'll see you at work," she said. then drove off down the road. I've been on cloud 9 ever since. Of course, Bugsy was waiting for me anxiously in the kitchen as I got in. He meowed continuously until I'd finished preparing his food, then quietly tucked in. Even when they are in a hurry, cats seem to be relaxed about it. I thought I'd escaped any form of punishment until I stepped backwards and almost slipped on the cat pee and feces. Okay, I know he wasn't really punishing me. Cats aren't vengeful at all. They just suffer separation anxiety. Upstairs in my ensuite, I surveyed the damage. It wasn't too bad. My lip was almost back to normal, but the impact on my brow ridge had caused a minor black eye to appear, along with some bruising on my cheek. The grazing on my forehead was still fresh. If anything, I reflected, I probably looked worse for wear, mostly because of my lack of sleep. I went to the toilet, shaved quickly, dressed in a new suit, then ran out of the door for the Lygon Street tram. 9:15 a.m. Now that I'm here, I'm wondering where Silvio is. He wasn't in when I arrived a few minutes ago, and is still nowhere to be seen. I'm wondering if everything's okay. Suddenly I remembered D1. I was supposed to Skype him yesterday. I opened my email account on my phone, and I can see a message waiting for me, and it's dated from 1:30 a.m. this morning. Dude, this is getting annoying. Where are you? I see the transfer happened, but to convince Kylie I might have to wait until the money goes through. I guess that's tomorrow. Today for you? Something big seems to be going down at home, so we really do need to talk. D1. I quickly type out. Sorry, D1. I had another fainting spell. This time it happened while I was playing basketball with the new boss. I fell and got bashed up pretty bad. Concussion and whatnot. I stayed on a colleague's couch last night, and I'm back at work now. Have you been feeling like I'm feeling? More dizzy spells? I'm starting to think this is the same thing as Frank has. I'll definitely catch you tonight on Skype, okay? D2. I'm shutting my phone cover when I see the conference room door opening. Branka, Jennifer, Silvio, and Ian walk out. If I went solely by Ian's expression, I'd say the meeting had been a genial event. If anything, his expression is a quiet mix of satisfaction and confidence, the kind you might wear after a job well done. By contrast, Branka is frowning. From where I'm standing, she also seems to be breathing hard. Not quite hyperventilating, but I can see her chest rising and falling almost as much. Jennifer's expression is impossible to read. Silvio, on the other hand, looks totally crestfallen. He walks to his desk with his gaze fixed firmly on the floor. Given that he sits only meters from my office, I find it hard to imagine that he wouldn't have seen me leaning back on my chair trying to catch his attention. Branka dashes off, seemingly to the tea room, while Jennifer hangs around chatting quietly to Ian for a while. Abruptly I hear her say goodbye, and she heads for the elevator lobby, leaving Ian on his own. He claps his hands together, smiles broadly, and makes a beeline for my room. I don't bother to hide the fact that I've been watching. Instead, I smile and wave. He does the same. As he enters my office, he does something unusual. He shuts the door. So, how is the wounded man today? He's grinning from ear to ear. The question sounds sincere, if somewhat playful. Just fine, Ian. A storm in a teacup. Seems I might have some problem with iron deficiency. Makes me prone to fainting. That's probably it. Of course, a lack of fitness doesn't help, he says. He's still smiling at me unblinkingly. That's true. And you can't be making too many excuses. I tell you, Dan, the one thing I've learned in all my years, people in the real world don't care about excuses. They only care about results, whether it's in work or play. Haven't you found that? Yes, I have. Ian walks over, pulls up a chair and sits down. He sniffs, leans forward on his elbows, and says, Hey, I'm sorry if I came across a bit put off yesterday. You know, after your dramatic collapse and all the attendant histrionics. I'm a little hazy on all that. Seems I cracked my skull a bit, as you can see. Ah, yes, quite. Hard to fake that, eh? Well, anyway, I have a short fuse. My weakness is that I can't tolerate weakness. In myself or in others. In that respect, I'm never a hypocrite. It's clear you hold yourself to a very high standard. Exactly. Imagine you were having a bad day. We all have bad days, eh? I suppose we do. Ian leans over and slaps me playfully on the shoulder. I'm glad we had this chat. And there are no hard feelings. I'd hate for there to be any tension between us. You know what I'm saying? I nod. It makes work life so difficult, and people can't just get along. Be part of the team. Everyone pulling his or her weight. Man, woman, straight or queer. Speaking of queer, he lowers his voice slightly, we've had to have a bit of a chat with your PA about some issues, his work ethic in particular, but also his general professionalism. I think we've sorted him out. But we'll have to keep a sharp lookout now to make sure he stays on the straight and narrow. You get what I'm saying? You'll let me know if you spot him goofing off, won't you? Of course, I lie. Marvellous! Ian gets up and heads for the door, where he pauses, his hand on the door handle. I imagine that your lateness today had something to do with... He points to my eye and brow, and I nod. That sounds reasonable. You've been punctual otherwise, they tell me. We do keep hours here, of course. The start time is 8 a.m., as you know. I can't help but remember that in my interview they were quite happy with an 8:30 a.m. start. I'll be sure to bear that in mind, I say. Ian smiles broadly and nods. He seems to be turning the door handle but stops and turns around to face me again. I probably don't need to mention this, but the old adage, it's who you know, not what you know, might be trite, but it still offers good advice. Take, for example, this office. There are people who are on the way out or are verging on it, your PA, for example, and those who have a bright future. If it were me, I'd make a point of associating myself with the latter. I like to keep things professional, Ian, I say non-committally. I mean, lunches with colleagues are usually fine, but I'd be inclined to minimize contact with some people for the sake of my career. He takes a step closer to my desk and lowers his voice again. For instance, Jennifer tells me she saw you coming back from lunch with Justine the other day. Ah, yes, that's true. I helped her brother's band at their gig. If Ian hears this, he ignores it. Instead, he says, I've gotten to know her quite well. Let's just say she's not what you might think. You mean she isn't a lawyer? I'm being quite mischievous now, but I tried to disguise it. Judging by his response, I don't think he's picked my sarcasm. Of course she's a lawyer. It's her previous career that concerns me. He sighs deeply. You see, I've tried to help her with her issues and her brother's unfortunate heroin addiction, but it ended up being a thankless and pointless task. He comes even closer and leans in, placing a hand on my desk. His voice is barely above a whisper. I can smell his coffee breath. What I'm about to tell you isn't public knowledge, and I'd like to keep it that way. Understand? No one else in this firm knows, and I'm only telling you because I can see your potential. I'm looking out for you, yeah? I nod. The fact is, Justine spent most of her university career working as a call girl. He pauses to let that sink in. Ask yourself, is that really the sort of person with whom you want to be associated? He sees the shock on my face and adds, I didn't think so. He winks, opens the door, and walks out.